Many Christian traditions follow a lectionary that lists Bible passages for each day. And today's lectionary reading from the Gospel, from the Christian scripture, comes from the book of Matthew, chapter 11. And it conveys a conversation between John the Baptist, who's been in prison, but hears all that Jesus has been up to, all this healing and teaching and preaching, even calming a storm. And in this Gospel of Matthew, Jesus will go on to walk on water, feed 4,000 people with 7 loaves of bread and a few small fish. He'll tell stories of radical forgiveness, hospitality, sacrificial love. And this story is a conversation between John the Baptist, who is in prison, and Jesus, who is out among the people. And the backstory on this life of Jesus is that people of all times have been waiting on this Messiah, this anointed one, some king or leader who would lead them especially strong and especially well. So here's that reading. When John heard in prison what the Messiah was doing, he sent word by his disciples and said to him, "Are you the one who has come, or are we to wait for another?" Jesus answered them, "Go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have good news brought to them. And blessed is anyone who takes no offense at me." As they went away, Jesus began to speak to the crowds about John. "What did you go out and see, a prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is the one about whom it is written, 'See, I am sending my messenger ahead of you, who will go and prepare the way for you.' Truly, I tell you, among those born of women, no one has arisen greater than John the Baptist, but the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he." It's a strange little exchange in this story. John asks, "Are you the one?" And Jesus is like, "Well, I've done some pretty incredible things. Healing and such, maybe even kind of supernatural. But I'd suggest you not get all worked up about it. By the way, that John is a pretty spectacular guy himself, a prophet, the great prophet Elijah even." And I like this story because it offers us this opportunity to wonder whether Jesus was the one anticipated by the book of the Hebrew prophet Isaiah, who wrote, "For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." And what I like about Christmas, besides the twinkling lights and the familiar songs, is that reminder to me each and every year that no matter what you call him, one has gone ahead to prepare the way for us. That way has been illuminated. Even as the days get so short, and in that darkness we struggle to find light, we do not do this journey unguided unless we choose to. Now, scholars don't agree about whether the prophecies of the Hebrew Scripture were realized in Jesus. Some believe that the text points to the reign of King David or some other king. But for me, it does not matter whether Jesus was the one prophesied in the Hebrew Scripture. For me, it does not matter whether Scripture's prophecy predicted any kind of truth. What matters, and what I know to be true, without a doubt, is that Hebrew prophecy foretold of someone who would show us the way to peace, to justice, to living bound by compassion and love and not material goods, to show us the way to encourage healing and not bringing one another down, to lift up one another, to grow our hearts and not our wallets, to be fair, to care for one another. And I know that someone came and showed us the way. A Prince of Peace. Jesus of Nazareth. Buddha, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, Gandhi. King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Prince of especially in this Advent season, arguing about who was the one foretold in ancient scripture? Or would we simply follow them toward peace, toward the Hebrew prophecy of shalom for all, which is a very tall order? Whenever I see this word, this Hebrew word, shalom, translated as peace, it makes me wish we had another English word for it. Although the word is accurate, it lacks something, some aspects of the word shalom. In the Hebrew lexicon, there are different understandings for the word shalom. And I share these with you today as we think about how this Christmas season we might usher peace into our lives, and to whom or what we might turn as sources of inspiration on that journey. So the first definition of shalom is safety and soundness of body. Some of it's remembering that peace requires taking care of our bodies, feeding them healthy and well-balanced food, exercising, using our bodies well. But when I think of being safe and sound, I also think of a child who is deeply loved and cared for. A child who is safe and sound, tucked away in bed. This past Thanksgiving, I spent a week in Colorado with my brother and his family. They moved there this year, and it was my first visit to see them. They have a nice house in a quiet suburb south of Denver. And I would have said that my young niece and nephew are safe and sound there. They've never known hunger or homelessness, violence, abuse. They are well cared for in every way. And last Friday, 2 days ago, my niece was sent home early from school, and my nephew spent the afternoon with his school in lockdown after a shooter entered the nearby high school, injured two, and took his own life. The children and staff of Arapahoe High School in Colorado will have to go back to school at some point and work on healing their shalom, where the sense of safety has been fractured. I've been trying to imagine what it takes to go back to a school once your sense of safety there has been threatened. And yesterday was the one-year anniversary of the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, in which the attacker killed 20 6- and 7-year-olds. And 6 women from the school, and his mother eventually took his own life. So that's just one story, but we all have experiences where our own safety of our bodies have been threatened, or the safety of another's in our lives. So what do you fear for your body? What threatens you? Violence, disease, addiction. Maybe it's food choices. Maybe it's how we underuse or overuse our bodies. What threatens your body? What do you need to be safe and sound? And once we are safe and sound, how do we not just survive, but how do we thrive and flourish? The next definition of shalom includes welfare, health, and prosperity. Nelson Mandela was not just after survival and safety for Black people in South African apartheid, but after healing and reconciliation and the ability for everyone to live up to their very fullest potential. For every person to have access to the basic needs for well-being, the opportunity to prosper. In the video today, I love that Nelson Mandela is remembered not just for peacemaking, not just for creating avenues of justice and reconciliation. Mandela is remembered by these children for dancing, for celebrating life. Do your heartaches and struggles make you frown upon life? Or do they make you dig into joy and happiness? And if you live in health and prosperity, what is your role in bringing health and prosperity to others? The next definition of shalom includes peace, quiet, tranquility, and contentment. This past summer, I spent 5 days in Oklahoma in beautiful Cherokee Nation, where we have our annual multi-generational Unitarian Universalist summer camp. I was one of the speakers for 4 nights, which felt like a little bit overwhelming responsibility. And at the same time, I was working on various projects for the church as we headed into the start of our new church year. And during that week, I was trying to balance time in nature and time in work. And it was just beautiful out there, just lots of hiking, wildlife, and water. But it's possible that I got a little more focused on work. And I didn't find that balance right away, that balance between being out in the world and working too hard. But on the last full day there, my cell phone died. And at first it seemed really awful, but then of course I had to live with that and had to start unplugging. And I realized it for the gift it was and went on long walks and managed to be more present and find my center and my peace. And I recall this poem that has been one of my favorites for leading me back to that place. It's in the back of our hymnal. It's called The Peace of the Wild Things by Wendell Berry. I can share that with you. He says, "When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of the wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought and grief. I come into the peace of still water and feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free." Next in our definitions for shalom, we have peace in friendship. And the Hebrew lexicon indicates that it could be human relations or in relationship, especially covenantal relationship with God. Reverend Pam Wat reminds us, "The years of all of us are short, our lives precarious. Our days and nights go hurrying on, and there's scarcely time to do the little that we might. Yet we find time for bitterness, for petty treason and evasion. How strange and foolish are these walls of separation that divide us." I want to share a story that was shared by South African wildlife activist and safari leader. His name's Boyd Barty. He gave a TED Talk just hours after Mandela died, and he dedicated that talk to Mandela. He talks about this term, Ubuntu, defined as "I am because of you." And he says, in a more collective society, we realize from the inside that our own well-being is deeply tied to the well-being of others. Danger is shared, pain is shared, joy is shared, achievement is shared, houses are shared, food is shared. Ubuntu asks us to open our hearts and to share. And he says, now although the root word is about people, I thought that maybe Ubuntu was only about people, and then I met this young lady. And as he says that, a picture comes up of a young elephant with her hips and legs looking kind of disjointed and asymmetrical. And he says her name was Elvis. In fact, she was given the name Elvis because someone said that she walked like she was doing the Elvis the Elvis dance. She was born with a very badly deformed back leg and pelvis. When I first saw her, I thought she would be dead in a matter of days. And yet, for the next 5 years, she returned in the winter months. And we would be so excited to be out in the bush and to come across the unusual track. And we would drop whatever we were doing and we would follow. And then we would come around the corner and there she would be with her herd. And that outpouring of emotion from people on our safari trucks as they saw her was a sense of kinship. And it reminded me that even people who grew up in cities feel a natural connection with the natural world and with animals. And yet I still remained amazed that she was even surviving. And then one day we came across these elephants at a small water hole. It was a sort of hollow in the ground, and I watched as the matriarch drank. And then she turned in that beautiful slow motion of the elephants, looks like the arm in motion, and she began to make her way up the steep bank. The rest of the herd turned and began to follow. And I watched young Elvis begin to psych herself up for the hill. Ears came forward, she had a full go of it, and halfway up, her She attempted it a second time, and again, halfway up, she fell backwards. And then on the third attempt, an amazing thing happened. Halfway up the bank, a young teenage elephant came in behind her, and he popped his trunk underneath her, and he began to shovel her up the bank. And it occurred to me that the rest of the herd was, in fact, looking after this young elephant. The next day I watched again as the matriarch broke a branch, and she put it in her mouth, and then she would break a second one and drop it on the ground. And a consensus developed between all of us who were guiding people in that area that herd was, in fact, moving slower to accommodate that elephant. What Elvis and the herd taught me caused me to expand my definition of Ubuntu. And I believe that in the cathedral of the wild, we get to see the most beautiful parts of ourselves reflected back at us. And it's not only through other people that we get to experience our humanity, but through all of the creatures that live on this planet. And Africa has a gift to share. It's a gift of a more collective society. And while it's true that Ubuntu is an African idea, what I see is the essence of that idea being invented here. What Barty describes, what Nelson Mandela lived, is that if shalom is possible, we need to see ourselves as a collective society and to practice Ubuntu, to take responsibility for one another's well-being, one another's welfare and health and prosperity, to let go of whatever every man for himself teaching we might have learned in this life. Our sense of peace depends on our collective well-being. For whom and for what would you be willing to slow down? What strange and foolish walls might you be willing to break down? The last definition of shalom is about peace for more. This is the kind of shalom or peace that we're used to hearing about, peace for more. There is a war memorial, a monument in a small park only in New York, where I spent some time many years ago. And it has these benches around it. And one of the benches says, freedom from fear, and another says, freedom from want. And it makes me wonder if we could just curb our fears and curb our wants, whether war would become obsolete. And so even if we as individuals have no control over warring nations, whether they go to war, maybe what's most important instead is facing our own unbridled fears and our own unbridled wants. When I sat many years ago on that freedom from fear bench, I had the sense while sitting there that I could not fear anything. I had to let go of whatever fears I had. That was more than 10 years ago, and we were still getting our heads around the attacks of 9/11. War was being waged in Iraq. It was a scary time. And I sat there on that bench trying to let go of fear. There are plenty of fears today too, and maybe being afraid is not being afraid is not so much the point, but letting go of the way that of these fears, at least to the point where we become hostile or mean-spirited to those who fear. Not letting fear take over. And then there's this freedom from want bench right across from it. How do we be free from want? The commercials luring us toward clothes and hair products and cars, even deodorant, that will make us more beautiful and more smart and more powerful. With so many other people wanting so much in the world, how do we be free from want? I think Christmas challenges our sense of shalom in this way, the sense of peace with its pressure for wanting the perfect gift to give or receive, wanting the perfect Christmas dinner, the perfect tree. What if our own sense of peace and the peace of our world is dependent on cultivating our freedom from want and our freedom from fear? You know, legends have been built all around this Christmas story. Legends of kings and shepherds bowing down and bearing gifts to this infant born of meager means, born of cattle, an outcast and a king, a prince of peace who would continue to break down walls by healing the sick, embracing the diseased, respecting the outcast, and feeding the poor. I go back to this little exchange that we started with John the Baptist and Jesus of Nazareth. John asks, "Are you the one?" And Jesus says, "Well, I've done some pretty incredible things, healing and such." And later Jesus says, "No, that John guy is pretty spectacular himself. A prophet even. Elijah. There is none more spectacular than John. And the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he." Some people use this passage to lift Jesus way up high. I use this passage to lift each and every one of us way up high. And so I wonder, in this season of Advent, this preparing for the birth of a Prince of Peace, whether this might be the year each one of us could take up that charge, to lead ourselves and others to peace. Because none of us has it all. Safety in body, health, prosperity, contentment, friendship, freedom from war. But if we all led the way in our own areas of strength and power, well, I wonder what John the Baptist would say then. The one is coming, the one who will show us the way to peace. May it be so. I invite you to rise in body and spirit and join me in singing our closing hymn, number 167, Nothing But